What's going on, everybody? We've got JT here, we've got David, we've got C Will. This is the next block. We are sponsored by NF Domains, and I'm excited to be back. I've been out for 2 weeks. Of course, happy Juneteenth for everyone out there that celebrates. And hello to everybody I've missed for the last 2 weeks. How you guys doing?
Yeah, been doing good. Had a first great Father's Day. So thanks. I think it was Damien. No,
Happy
Dan,
Father's Day.
aka
Happy
Uncle
Father's
Sam.
Day.
Yeah, it was good celebrating with the little man. We didn't do much. Obviously, it's June in Florida, so there's really not much you can do when you step outside except melt. So we did go to the beach.
I was just in Texas and experienced the same thing. Honestly, it was, coming from Massachusetts where it's still actually kind of cold, going down to Texas where it's springtime, yet it was like 95 to 105 every day I was there. Quite the difference for me, honestly. A little bit too hot for spring.
It's really humid, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
way more humid than I expected it to be, actually.
Yeah, sticky.
Texas is almost the same climate. That's where my wife's from. So if we ever moved from Florida, we'd probably go back to Texas. But it's a lot of her families live out in the like the mountain or the desert area, like in the middle of nowhere, and it gets so.
I see a B-Day. Uncle Sam.
All right, nice. Yeah, Fisherman's birthday was a couple days ago as well. So happy belated birthday to Fisherman or John from NF Domains.
Happy birthday, John. Happy Father's Day, Damon, and the rest of y'all. Happy Juneteenth as well.
Yep. So, what are you guys seeing in the markets right now?
It's red everywhere. No,
is it?
No, I'm just playing.
Probably.
Consistently, it's been pretty boring ever since that drop down that we had maybe in November of last year. Everything's really been sideways, except Algo. Algo's been a pretty poor performer. Algorand's the 4 years old today. Let's pull up a chart though, just for fun.
Happy birthday, Algorand.
Yeah, Algorand's birthday was 8 days ago. He's D13. I remember he had it charted, and it's funny that I saw the foundation send out a tweet today. I guess his was maybe, and he can maybe say in the comments exactly, what the difference is and what they're celebrating. But yeah, I did see that little bit of I was interested because I was hearing about it. Like I said, days ago.
I posted
and now they posted a tweet.
Because I think what happened was they went live on mainnet, but the public didn't really get it till today, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's the understanding. Like they did it, but not released.
Well, Algorand's 4 years old and setting all-time lows, so we're doing something right.
I know. So what do y'all feel about that? Kind of blows my mind. It's bittersweet.
I feel like it just speaks to, like I said, the bear market, JT, ever since November of 2021, it's been down and to the right from almost everything. I mean, yes, Bitcoin and Ethereum have done well since the beginning of January. If you, bought that low, I think Bitcoin was up at one point, 40 to 60% and Ethereum has done well, but most everything has just literally, just been trending up and to the right a little bit. And then obviously everything outside of Ethereum and Bitcoin got hit with pretty much, you're probably a security. The SEC is going to try to come for you. They're coming for Coinbase. They're coming for Binance. Binance US is having to shut down. Crypto.com is shutting down, in these states and all this stuff. I'm pretty sure it was.
Oh, I got to look that up.
Yeah,
that's my main exchange.
Yeah, but you just have a lot of FUD, a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt on what is actually going to make it through this bear market. And you also have tons of foundations. It's not just the Algorand Foundation, tons of foundations everywhere that money is probably drying up. They're probably having to cut people or, figure out how they're going to, last, because you're even seeing Algo being delisted from certain exchanges. So that could potentially affect price as it goes forward. We had John Woods on last week. He was obviously still very optimistic. I even listened to his interview this past week as well. I forget what the name of the YouTube channel or podcast it was on, but he's still super bullish about not only Algorand, but also the entire crypto space. And so, yes, there are going to be things that come out of this bear market, but it's tough right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, I would second that. To see a all-time low Algorand is, like I said, bittersweet. I'm happy because I went and purchased more Algorand to lower my average cost. So thank y'all for that. But also it does suck because my portfolio for at least Algorand is beat up. We don't like to do that. So I have to implore a lot of patience over time. But again, like you said with John, I didn't watch that interview, but I'm hearing that it was explosive. You got any highlights from what John was saying?
Nothing obviously I can't remember specific things that he would have said, but, just a lot of what he said to us on the show and a lot of what we know, there's a lot of fluff in this space. There's a lot of, partnerships maybe that are fluff, but real world utility, it's still to come. So that's just kind of still shows how early we are. And like his thing, just like I think JT has said, maybe you've seen, I said as well, see will, but like there has yet, once a killer app actually gets created on a chain that actually could just tons of people could use and they fall in love with it. And that would be what can bring mass adoption in. They don't care about what chain it's on. They could care less. It's just the application that gets built. So honestly, that's to an extent where I am kind of holding some cash back and waiting for that, because I know the next bull market's coming. We all know it's coming, but where is the killer app going to be deployed that's going to grab everybody's attention? Because that's the thing. If you can keep your ear to the ground and find the next, say, Axie Infinity, and obviously, we hope it's something better than that. But the next big thing to actually launch, it could be on Cosmos, it could be on Ethereum, it could be on Polkadot, it could be on Algorand, Cardano, Solana. It doesn't matter. If you're ready for it, you could really cash in.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And one of the things I'm looking at over here while you guys were talking, I'm going to pull on screen, is BTC versus QQQ, which is basically the NASDAQ ETF. And throughout most of BTC's history, it's been pretty correlated to QQQ. As you can see here, as Bitcoin in orange down below is going down, QQQ is going down. But the correlation begins to stop basically right here on April 27th, where QQQ has been just a straight up to the right, basically. Like, it's been on a rampage since April 27th. So for basically almost the last 2 months, where Bitcoin's been straight down to the right. And I'm curious to know when that'll catch back up, if it will catch back up at all. Like, is this correlation broken, or is this just a great time to get in while Bitcoin is severely under correlation? Or will QQQ correct and come back down to here? Like, there's a lot of questions here that lead me to wonder what is next in the market.
See, what is that moving average line that you have?
This is the 200 week. I can take it off, honestly, but this is the 200 week moving average. It's honestly a little irrelevant when you're doing comparisons anyway, so it doesn't really line up perfectly. Watch, I'll show you what I mean. If I take Bitcoin off of this and then add that back, it starts to make a little bit more sense, because it only shows it for QQQ. It doesn't show it for Bitcoin. So that was pretty irrelevant.
Yep.
I would say, and here's my thoughts as well, is like with that idea is like, we have to think we're still in Operation Choke Point 2.0 or whatever, and trying to get people out of buying crypto, right? Taking away people's ability to easily access it and on-ramp their money into it. And obviously right now, the stock market looks way more enticing. Everything in crypto just got labeled. I mean, this is also, you have to think, not exactly on April, I think you said, 18th or whatever. That's not when the SEC started attacking, but that's when you really started getting rumors of, some of these lawsuits and some of these things that were going to be Bittrex. Maybe that was when that lawsuit launched. Like, I think what you're seeing is just a coordinated effort to get people to stop investing in crypto, chase the hype, right? Just like Mark Yusko said, what do we chase? We chase things that are moving, right? So people are probably not looking at crypto, not seeing the undervalued projects that are there, and are probably chasing Tesla, Meta, all these stocks that are just now, because the S&P 500 is looking like it's about to start a new bull run. They want to get in there. Guess what? I bet they're going to end up catching.
I'd argue that they've been in a bull run already. I mean, usually it's 20% off the lows that gets you to a new bull run. QQQ, the NASDAQ, is already less than 10% away from breaking new all-time highs from the 2021 standpoint. I mean, if you look at SPY.
Yeah, I would agree that it looks like the bull market,
pretty much the
bull
same
market
thing.
has started. Yeah, it has started and not been announced. Just like we were in a recession, but they didn't say we were in a recession.
8.5%. We're 8.5% away from a new all-time high on the SPY, which is kind of insane if you consider what's been going on in the crypto market. It's as if there's a complete decoupling. But I do wonder if, to add on to what you were saying, David, BlackRock just recently announced an ETF filing. Fidelity is likely gearing up to announce an ETF filing. And I know a lot of those Bitcoin ETFs have failed in the past, but BlackRock has a really good track record. I believe it's like 254 approved to 1 not approved. So their track record of getting things approved is phenomenal.
Because they own everybody to make those decisions. I mean, that's the whole thing. It's a mirror.
Are greater than GDPs of other countries. Like, I totally agree with you, but I'm just curious if part of this push down in crypto is intentional, so these asset managers can basically load their bags at depressed prices.
I would say it always is. Like, that's the way the market works. I mean, they got way more patience than we do, especially you look at some of these, crypto firms that have been just destroyed throughout this bear market because they're young people that are eager, that are probably over aggressive in their leverage, and they're getting melted. And who are the ones who are going to end up being the ones who seasoned, who make it through and scoop up all these cheap prices when we're too scared to buy Algorand at 10 cents, 8 cents, or Solana at 18, 15, $10, or Ethereum at 1800, 1500. Like, they're gobbling it up left and right because they know they're going to be selling it back to us in 2 years from now, 400, 600, 800, times the price. And that's the thing. It's like they have that ability because they got the money. BlackRock's got the money to do whatever BlackRock wants to do.
Well, I'll point out too, when we talk about like the QQQ, I saw that some Twitter posts people I follow, they're like, who is going to buy NASDAQ or, S&P 500 right now when it's like hitting all-time highs? But someone pointed out 401ks buy every paycheck, right?
Yeah.
Every single paycheck, they have billions or millions of dollars that will purchase the top over.
And if you don't think it can be in most markets are bot driven anyways. It's bots that are buying and trading these things. So it's like, if you don't think the price can be manipulated up to cause FOMO, I mean, then I don't know, you haven't been paying attention. And if you don't think the government can't jump alongside and send out money to help with that FOMO, then obviously you didn't pay attention to what happened with, the whole COVID thing. I don't know. I definitely think the way I see it is, for Bitcoin's sake, looking at crypto specific, there is still a gap on Bitcoin's chart. I think it's down really close to right when this run started at 20,000 or close to that area. Here's my two thoughts on when it will correlate or not correlate with the S&P 500 and the stock market. I think either A, it could go from right now and continue trending down until it fills that gap at 20K, and maybe the stock market corrects with it. And that's what kind of brings it down to that level. And then they both run together. Or I think Bitcoin is right now just in a small consolidation zone, and it's about to make that correlation and jump back on track, and everything is going to run hot. But ultimately, I do think, just like most people say, those gaps on the charts get filled. And I still think even if Bitcoin runs back above to 30 up to 40K, I still think there is a good shot we see it come back and fill that gap in around 20K before the eventual 2024 bull run. And if you compare the past bull runs of Bitcoin, that happened in the last bear market, right? It had that, the bottom, and then it came all the way back up, and then it dropped massively because of the COVID-19 thing. And then and from there it was up into the right only. So, anything can happen, but that's kind of the two scenarios I see, at least for Bitcoin. Altcoins, on the other hand, I got no clue. I mean, they're like, it really, this SEC stuff is just weighing so heavy because people are scared on like what is actually, what is being, considered security going to do if the SEC were to win these cases against Coinbase and Binance. There's just a lot of uncertainty. And so honestly, there's part of me that's like, if you're not in Bitcoin and Ethereum, you're really rolling the dice right now on your value temporarily going, fluctuating a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said, but I still think because we have an American bias, we still largely discount the effects that the Asia market will have on cryptocurrency. And from what I'm hearing, the Chinese market, not necessarily the crypto market, but just the Chinese government in general, is looking to do a giant stimulus package. And there's a lot of there's a lot of guessing out there that it's actually going to have a huge boom for the crypto markets and just really most other markets, similar to how our bailouts, 2 years ago had a great boom on all markets. So yeah, I think we do have that to look forward to, but I honestly want to add one, little tidbit to your points on Bitcoin, because I actually do largely agree that I think we're going to come down. I don't think we're going to come down to 2,000, but I do think we're going to come down and retest this area
20,
over here. We're anywhere from about 24,000 to about 25,000. I think we're going to come down. These two lines, these two vertical lines right here are the next FOMC meeting and the next BLS inflation report. Actually, I think the other way around, inflation and then FOMC. And it also times up perfectly with this little pendant that's happening. So really, I think depending on what happens those months will depend whether we break upward or downward out of this pattern that's forming.
Well, I will say this. It looks like money is flowing, though, looking at the QQQ. So that's a good sign. If my understanding, the Fed did pause. JT, you want to speak on that?
Yeah, the Fed finally paused first time in I think what 11, 12, 13 meetings, something ridiculous like that. But what I found interesting when Jay Powell spoke was, this was a long anticipated pause. And even I thought that it would likely be the final pause, but the way he spoke alluded to the fact that he believes that it'll likely be 2 more rate increases by the end of the year anyway. So there's a pause now, but between the next 6 months, he's predicting we're going to go up another 50 basis points. So I don't know. It's tough to be seen, but that is also still a light at the end of the tunnel. If we're
I think he
basically
don't want to
there,
get our hopes up or something.
Right. He doesn't. He wants
Yeah,
people
he
to
doesn't.
stay cautionally optimistic that inflation's coming down, or so they show us. I don't really see that inflation coming down.
But don't go spending too much money.
Yeah, but get ready because we may still, have to change some things, and things may break.
Prices don't have to come down for inflation to come down. That's like 2 totally different things. So inflation is just the rate of change from the previous period. So it just basically means prices are going up at a slower pace. They haven't come down at all. So everyone that's saying like prices are still high, absolutely, and they're still rising at 4% as the last reading. They're just not rising at 9% now. We haven't hit deflation, that's for sure. So prices, of course, aren't coming down. Even if we get down to the Fed's target rate of 2%, that's still prices going up by 2%. Like we're not. It's likely that you really won't see this deflation that everyone is hoping for, in my opinion.
Well, hey, every day Algorand has a great comment. I think the crypto decoupled from the S&P 500 because of the AI FOMO.
I agree.
Talking to a lot of investors behind the scenes and CEOs, that exactly is what I'm hearing, is that everyone's looking towards AI, and then that's what you've seen, the NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft going to the moon again. What do you think about that, y'all?
I couldn't agree more, honestly.
Yeah, I would say I agree with that statement. And obviously, I've been looking at various cryptos that are involved with AI. I've not really bought many. The only one I guess you could kind of say would be, I don't think it's really AI, but Render. You just said NVIDIA. It's more one the helping, kind of on that side. But there's a ton of projects that are in the crypto space that are focusing on AI and things like that. So those obviously may be having some, more favorable. Not dropping as much, but it seems like that's what's drawing a lot of the FOMO. JT, I'd be interested to know, do you know when or how far away maybe we are from the Chinese government doing those bailouts and the Asian market kind of maybe seeing that influx? Is there any timetable on like what, that you would know, or is it just kind of like still up in the air? Could be this year, could be next.
It's still up in the air. I figure if it's going to happen, it'll be this year, but it's still up in the air. There's, of course, with any government, there's internal politics. So there is some pushback to the idea of a bailout. Well, not really bailout. What do we call it? Stimulus. So there is some pushback to the idea of a stimulus, but I think it's going to happen. Honestly, I still think it's going to happen, but I'm not sure when. Maybe in the next 2 to 3 months would be my guess.
And just on that topic as well, a little bit, what do you guys think on like the US with stimulus? Do you think we are going to see stimulus soon? I mean, we've seen the Fed raise rates all the way back up, to where they were, where they've not been in a while. What are your all's thoughts on, with so much inflation and with how expensive everything is getting, and obviously wages are not increasing at that same clip for people? Where do you guys think, America goes with stimulus or, things like that?
We're heading towards universal income by 2030. That's where we're headed.
That would be insane.
They're doing more pilots and shit like that. So, but on the real note, I don't think so, because if they pausing and things of that nature, I feel like they're saying that everything is fine. And the money is already still here. We just got to have all that dry power from these rich people to put it back into the market, in my opinion. Because there's a lot of money on the table. Like Warren Buffett got billions on the side just sitting.
Yep.
And he says
there is
value.
Yeah, even in the equity market, as you alluded to, absolutely that's the case, and you can see it in the crypto market just based on the market caps of the stablecoin positions comparatively to the last bull and bear market and where those stablecoin positions were. But the chart I just had on the screen, it's actually perfect for your question. It's kind of hard to see because it's basically just up and to the right. This is the US M2, which is the money supply from 1960 to now, and 1960, you can see it. Let's see, you can see it right down here at $278 billion, all the way up here to $20.67 trillion. And this orange line right here is basically the average increase. So if we zoom in a little bit, you can kind of see, hold on, let me do this a little bit. You can kind of see we're getting back down to the mean. So I think that's basically what we have to wait for. I have two little lines here that are predicting when it's going to happen. I think it could happen maybe in July to August is when we could reach this mean. And then honestly, yeah, I do think the money printers will come back on and will continue this decades long trend of up and to the right. You know, I don't think we're too far away from money printers being turned back on. Maybe not to the same extent as this COVID stimulus right here, or maybe it might increase, you know, more gradually. You know, there's another mean that existed before.
How do you think it would look? Do you guys think it's going to be, you know, this? Because like I said, it was crazy. I thought, you know, how, you know, checks were literally being sent directly to our bank accounts, and obviously, you know, Will hinted at it, universal income, right? I know the idea of this, so that, you know, soon everybody will just be given a living wage, right? Almost. Yep. And then obviously if you choose to work, I guess, then you can make your extra wage, right? But, you know, I don't think 2030 is a little bit aggressive. I don't see it coming that fast. I think there'd be a hell of a lot of pushback from something like that. And it'd be hard to get, you know, both sides to agree on something like that. But I do think that, you know, some type of living wage is coming, and maybe that is how they will inflate, you know, do a lot of inflation, is just by handing out, you know, if you make under a certain amount, well, you get X amount every 2 weeks or something sent directly to your bank account. And that could be something with, like, you know, like you said, the pilot programs that are being sent out, the Fed
they're
Now
doing
system.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely getting prepared. But do you guys see anything, you know, in the next few years, like we saw with COVID-19, where they're just sending those checks, or do you think that's going to wait until they get something fully set up like the Fed Now?
Yeah, I think they're not going to just send checks like that. That was one of those, you know, once in a lifetime opportunities because of the virus. But I think that money will be sent out. I think it's just going to come in different forms, right? So, for example, when you look at Biden's Build Back Better or his infrastructure, right? That was basically a stimulus package that skipped over the consumer and went directly to our bosses, which are the corporate CEOs and whatnot. So it literally
basically how it's always been.
Yeah. So I think it's going to happen, but they're not going to give it to us this time. They're going to skip us again and give it right back to Jamie Dimon and all the rest of the people. I think that process is going to happen, but it will drive the prices up because bonds and all that. People need somewhere to put that money, and you can't just hold cash.
I mean, you saw that chart. You saw that chart, David. I mean, over the last 60, 70 years, the money supply has just been up to the right. And it was only the COVID period where we actually saw a direct, you know, here's a check, you know, as part of that. So it's really just going to, in my opinion, be the same way it's been for the last 70 years. I mean,
right. I guess I'm still playing somewhat into the worlds of, what is it, Carl, or the guy from Davos or whatever, the Carl Schwab, the World Economic Forum or whatever guy, that when he says, you know, that they've got to, you know, that the COVID-19 wasn't the last time we're going to see of you know, the virus, you know, be pandemic type stuff being, you know, the main stage. And I think the next one might even be worse. And that's where I feel like you could see something like those printers getting turned back on.
The only thing I see is this, because I was reading a old Warren Buffett letter. But anyways, I'm thinking about, it was this. It's if like California get hit by a massive earthquake, right? One of those events, I think, will cause a chain reaction of, you got to feed the people again, because like you got California and New York are really important economically for the whole country. So I think if something like that happens, which they are predicting a massive earthquake on the West Coast, I think that would do it.
Yeah. I definitely think if they're gonna send checks to people, it would come from a natural, you know, disaster or something like that, like we saw with COVID-19. But I do think, like you said, the universal income and stuff like that is still coming. I just don't think 2030. I think, you know, I think it may take a little bit longer. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of people who keep, you know, the 2030 date. A lot of people in crypto think, you know, oh, if you're buying crypto now, you know, by 2030 you're going to be set. I mean, even Algorand supply is going to be fully out by 2030. So
at their rate, 27, but
right. That date is, you know, obviously in a lot of people's heads, but you know, we'll have to wait and see. We did have some other
I put one message in the chat real quick. It was still about China real quick.
Oh yeah.
Just saying they JT, if you want to bring it up, they basically they released some structured notes on Ethereum. And so just Bank of China is using Ethereum for some notes, which is very interesting to me.
So yeah, are they using a layer 2 or are they using mainnet?
Let's read some of it. So let's see. On June 12th, Bank of China's investment bank subsidiary BOCI announced the issuance of 200 million Chinese yuan, worth about $28 million, worth of digital structured notes minted on the Ethereum blockchain. The move makes BOCI the first Chinese financial institution to issue a tokenized security in Hong Kong. So, it's Hong Kong. Not necessarily.
That makes sense.
Investment banking company UBS helped originate the product for placement to its clients in the Asia Pacific region. Let's see. The CEO of BOCI commented, working with the UBS, we are driving the simplification of digital asset markets and products for customers in Asia Pacific through the development of blockchain-based digital structured products designed specifically for Asia Pacific customers. This is actually a pretty big deal, honestly. You guys want to read a little bit more of it?
Yeah, go ahead. And it's permissioned blockchain, it looked like.
Simultaneous to the development, UBS has been expanding its tokenization across structured products, fixed income, and repo financing. The firm issued a $50 million tokenized fixed rate note in December 2022 under English and Swiss law, digitized on a permissioned blockchain. Very interesting there. So it does kind of seem like they might have spun up their own like private version of Ethereum. Cointelegraph previously. Oh, go for it. What's your comment?
No, I was just saying that's the thing that always gets me, right? Which is important, that permissioned word or a side chain or private. When we're talking about us being retail investors or coin holders, I'm very doubtful they're going to buy the coin that we're using. So
I wish they would expand on this, because there's only 2 more paragraphs in this article, and it doesn't expand on the permissioned blockchain, whether they spun up their own L2, whether they, whether they forked Ethereum and created a private version, whatever they did. There's no real expansion on this. Is it just like their own private chain that has an EVM? There's really no description. But Cointelegraph goes on saying they previously reported that Hong Kong opened crypto exchange access for retail users on June 1st. Roughly 2 weeks later, Joseph Chan Ho Lim, under Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury for the Government of Hong Kong, stated that the Special Administrative Region is actively participating in the blockchain industry and aims to establish a framework for stablecoin regulation within a year. That's pretty hopeful as well. This really reiterates what I was saying earlier, that I do think the next bull market is going to be Asia, at least in a large part, pushed by the Asia Pacific region. On February 16th, Hong Kong issued an HK $800 million green bond tokenized on Goldman Sachs Tokenization Protocol, GSDAP, with an annual yield of about 4%. And in December 2022, Hong Kong introduced 2 exchange-traded funds for cryptocurrency futures, raising over $70 million before their launch. To me, this is all good news. I would like to hear more about this permissioned blockchain. I would also like to see more on non-permissioned blockchains. But outside of that, I think this is good news.
Yeah.
Definitely got to get Sean Lee back on, because I know obviously he's doing a lot of work over there in the Asia Pacific area on regulatory stuff, but also just he's going to probably see and hear and know a lot of what's going on before it happens, or for we maybe in the US would think it's going to happen. And so, and I agree, and that's the thing. What are you guys, what are your eyes on out in the crypto sphere? What cryptos maybe are you buying or looking to buy? If prices continue to come down, that you think stand the best chance at making that comeback, in this next run? Anything you guys are watching?
Yeah, I'll say this though. I made this video basically on my YouTube talking about I sold my XRP and bought Algorand.
I saw that.
Yeah, it went crazy.
Everybody, XRP army got on you for that one, I'm sure.
Oh my God. So the XRP army, yeah, y'all crazy. But shout out to y'all. I just wanted to bring that up. So I just doubled down on Algorand. I was consolidating. That's why. And they didn't like that I made that video. But yeah, consolidating. I'm just doubling down on Algorand. And my theory on this is that since we're at roughly 10 cents, right, I can see Algorand at least hitting $1 at some point in this near future. It's not an all-time high. It's about 50% of that. And I don't think that's too reasonable, even if Algorand, you know, it's got SEC issues and whatnot. That's so I'm only looking into Algorand right now and then Cosmos.
Yeah, I was actually, when y'all were talking about that thing with China, I was actually looking up because I thought Cosmos had a huge connection with that USB thing, but it was actually BSN. I got my initials mixed up. The IrisNet and the BSN of China and whatnot. Cosmos is working
but
with,
Cosmos
using it.
Is heavy in the Asian countries as well, and I think one of the founders is I can't remember what country he's from, but they're very active too in Asia.
Yeah. And I do think that that's where you're going to see a lot of these protocols that aren't really too worried about the United States, right? They're not worried about what, you know, they weren't launched in, you know, any type of offering for United States. They don't have to worry about the SEC. They are doing their thing. And regardless of what the United States does, those are going to be the cryptos I think that do stand a good shot at mooning. And so, you know, I've definitely got my bags spread out a little bit. I've not consolidated all to Algorand. I know Algorand is, you know, technically the foundation's headquartered in Singapore and the Inc. team is in Boston, but they did do their Algorand labs in Rome. So obviously they're probably feeling that pressure and making sure they get as much out of the US as they can. But there is definitely still a part of me that wonders, you know, is the tech really going to matter even in this next bull run? Because that's the thing. It's like, if the tech really does matter, then obviously I would be, you know, really going heavy into Algorand. But to me, I think it's going to still be driven around hype. I think it's still going to be driven around network effects and just the amount of developer activity and the amount of people that can really get on a stage and put it to the masses. And honestly, there is nobody, I mean, shout out to John Allen Woods for all the work that dude is doing to try to get Algorand noticed, going on these podcasts, going on, you know, in various, you know, stages and talking about Algorand. But as far as the hype and the retail goes, like, you really aren't going to, I don't think you're going to learn about Algorand unless you get into it and you just start doing your own research. That's still my fear.
Well, I'll say this. What I've been seeing, just like on YouTube, right, when I bring up XRP, Algorand and XRP are searched a lot, you know, and I would say that's a very positive thing because someone's researching this thing. And so that means someone's looking. But I think overall, if anyone's hearing me in the crypto space, just be done with the USA in terms of crypto. Just let it go. You know what I mean? Like 95% of the world is outside of the US. And then it's not hard for a USA investor like I did with my XRP. I could buy it on Ledger if I wanted. I mean, we can go get the thing. It's just that our institutions are not going to be able to buy it. But people with big bags, they want it, they're going to go buy it.
Yeah. And this could be a whole, you know, the US, just like China, a lot of times will enforce, you know, laws and ban stuff so that their people can't take advantage of being able to get it or and stuff like that. I mean, that's all the US is doing. They're trying to slow the adoption, right? They don't want us buying and jumping into these things as fast. So they limit and they make us fear, you know, getting into these projects. But I would agree.
I'll say, JT, other than a stable coin, what are you looking at?
So I've largely consolidated as well. I'm basically just in stable coins, Algo and Opulus actually for a trade. But outside of that, I largely agree that it's hard to predict what will fuel the next bull market, but it's undeniable that a lot of the big money still has their eyes on Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I personally think Bitcoin isn't the digital gold that everyone thinks it is. So I'm going to avoid Bitcoin, but I do think you have to kind of tip the hat to Ethereum a little bit and have some of it. I still think there's plenty of better technologies. I think Algorand's a better technology, but just on the sheer fact of network effects alone, I don't think you can go into the next bull market without having a little bit of Ethereum.
Yeah, I definitely am starting to feel that more and more, that like ETH is going to, you know, even though people in Algorand, you know, hate dealing with fees, hate dealing with the slowness of it, like holding some ETH, I think is going to be key. Not necessarily using it, not saying you got to go, you know, be in DeFi and, you know, sending and doing all this stuff, because then you will probably lose quite a bit of money and get frustrated with it. But just holding some is definitely going to be huge. You know, I am also interested, JT, in your comment there. I'd love to hear your thoughts on. I think we've talked about this in the past. I'm trying to get someone from the Monero network on our show, but I just, looking at it, right, Bitcoin is not even what it's, is supposed to be. Digital cash, a store of value, quote unquote. Like, if you really want to be a store of value, look at Monero for the past year. It's literally almost traded sideways between
Yeah,
130.
that chart is amazing.
Yeah, 130 and like 145. It has literally stayed right there. Store of value, that's Monero. Now, Bitcoin obviously is way more volatile, and if you'd have bought it in January, you would have made more gains, right? From those buys. But it's also not private, right? You can see those transactions. You can know who's sending what to who, whereas Monero, you can't. And Monero is also faster. So, what are your thoughts? What are your all's thoughts on like something like a Monero actually being the true Bitcoin and getting that network effect? Or do you think that Bitcoin is just destined to always be the top dog when it comes to crypto?
I'll say my comment on Monero real quick. The question I would have is like, who's behind Monero? Because I wasn't quite sure, and who's maintaining it other than the node providers. But otherwise, that's all I really have on Monero. I do like it. What you said makes 100% sense. And I, dabbled. I told you with mining on there to test it out. But that's all I really have on Monero.
Yeah, personally, I think Monero is one of the OGs in the space. It's one of the most reliable blockchains in the space. It's still, as you mentioned, it's a private chain, unlike Bitcoin, which is a public chain, as we all know. Which they both have their pros and cons. Honestly, there's a reason you want transparency, and there's a reason why you want privacy. So both could have their place in the world. But I do believe digital cash should be private. Like if I go take out $100 out of the ATM, sure, you can track that ATM transaction. You can know I used the ATM, but you don't know where I went and spent that $100. I could have given it to a friend. I could have just like thrown it out my car window. I could have bought, something at a bodega. It could, whatever it might be, you would have no idea what I did with that. And so my personal opinion, digital cash has to be the same thing. You shouldn't be able to track people's everyday purchases, or, if they want to have privacy, they should have the ability to have privacy. That's sort of my take on it. But I don't know. I think I do think that Bitcoin is destined to lose that number one spot. I don't really know. I just think that there's a lot of other innovative technologies that, to Bitcoin's demise, Bitcoin can't innovate as quickly. So I think it's just going to eventually get left behind.
What about these two things? NFTs on Bitcoin. I know they're still slow, but people are loving them. And then also the Lightning Network.
I don't like the Lightning Network personally. I think it's a centralized solution to Bitcoin. And I personally think the NFTs are largely hype because it's a new thing right now on Bitcoin, but they're clogging up the network. It's basically making Bitcoin even more unusable in that sense. So I don't know. I personally don't think it maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe I'll be terribly wrong. But as of right now, and over the last like 4 or 5 years, it doesn't seem like Bitcoin will be able to keep up with other smart contract platforms in the realms of DeFi and NFTs and other areas.
Bitcoin is going to go down. I think one day this will probably get clipped, and like someone will like play this like 10 years or something, 20 years from now. But Bitcoin's going to be like the boomer coin. Like nobody's like, I honestly don't believe in 15 years, people are going to be 10, 15 years. People are going to be like, how much Bitcoin do you have? I really don't. I just don't think it has that value that people think it's going to have long term. And maybe it's longer than 15 years. I don't know. But I don't know. I just think there's so many things and issues that Bitcoin has that it doesn't matter how many layers, just like Ethereum, how many layers you build on top of it. It just gets more and more confusing to the end user. Like, people want simplicity. Like, look at today's world. They want to be able to just easily do it. Now, if Bitcoin can, if its only thing is to store, right? If it does become, not so volatile and people just see it as a store of value. Okay. Yes. I could see that happening and staying long-term, but all the other stuff, NFTs, people using it to send value, transacting with it on a daily basis with the Lightning Network, all that stuff is hype and stupidity, because it can't even handle what it's doing now. And you saw it try to do NFTs, almost, it slowed the network down. And that's with the amount of people using crypto now. Like, it's not even talking about the world. So like Jake Mahlers and all these people who get on a stage and well, what's his name? Michael Saylor, who literally act like Bitcoin is God descended to, save humanity. I just don't believe it. I do think, honestly, I think Ethereum is probably the closest thing that's going to surpass Bitcoin in market cap, and definitely in users and people who hold it over the next few years. But I do think that even then you're going to see another, some of these faster networks maybe on the heels of Ethereum, with the next run.
Yeah, I agree. And then I want to add to your point too about Monero being a better store of value. I actually don't even like the store of value argument, because Bitcoin was never supposed to be a store of value. It was always supposed to be digital cash, and it kind of took on the realm of store of value once people pointed out that it doesn't work well as digital cash. They basically created another reason to hold it, or more or less. But if you look at the US dollar, I mean, yeah, the face of it, if your dollar bill always says $1 on it, but it's lost like 92% of its purchasing power. That's really volatile. So I don't think volatility is something that is, a negative. I don't think it's like, oh, you can't have a currency that's so volatile. It's like, we already do have a currency that's really volatile. It's just the face of it always looks the same. So it doesn't feel volatile, because $1 is always $1, but $1 gets you less and less substantially over the years. So that's my point there.
There's a cool post I seen where it was, let's see, was it 30 years ago? So it was like, you can buy 6 Big Macs for the price of minimum wage, right? And that was minimum wage. I can't remember the price, but now, 30 years later, we can buy only 0.9 of a Big Mac with our minimum wage. So if we count our money in Big Macs, we lost hella money.
Yeah,
that kind of brings it full circle to our talk on universal basic income earlier. I showed a chart. We didn't get to really talk on it, but I'll bring it back up right here. So this is titled "The Disconnect Between Productivity and Typical Workers' Compensation" from 1948 to 2014. I couldn't find a more up-to-date one, but I know it's basically the same exact thing. And as you can see, right around the 1973, there was a huge decoupling. Wages and productivity were hand in hand. And then there was a huge decoupling where wages basically have only effectively gone up maybe 8 or 9% since then, and productivity has increased about 140%. So a drastic decoupling there. And although I do sort of agree with David that I think universal basic income will be harder to get than some of its supporters believe, I think a easier fix would be to tie the minimum wage to inflation and productivity, and no longer have to have this year after year debate on whether we should raise the minimum wage or not. It should just be based on inflation and productivity.
Yeah,
exactly. It should just get back to being coupled with this, in my opinion.
States like California, they already have their mandates that it's going to go to like $18 in the next few years or something like that. Though, inflation, everything will keep separating, but I guess they're being really progressive than a lot of other states are.
Yeah.
But even still, like by making it so it's, you put it to law and then making it so you still have to vote on it and again, vote on the next increase again 2 or 4 years later down the line, turns it into this political volleyball where you really could fix that just by creating, it's even a national bill that just simply tied it to inflation and then left it alone. It would just do its own thing over the years.
Because at the end of the day, everything is too expensive, and minimum wage you can't live off of minimum wage.
And I want to go back. I want to go back to this Monero talk too, because we have a couple people in the comments, and I found this to be a little amusing, because we've got Everyday Algonaut, who I definitely respect. He's always here. In Monero, there's a lot of money from the drug industry. I hope it's not bridged to Algorand. And we have another comment down here from Don saying, "Nah, man, only criminals and fraudsters use Monero." And I mean, you could say the same thing about the US dollar. The most crime is done by the US dollar, and we already have a US dollar wrapped token on Algorand. So, I mean, we have the token on Algorand that represents the most crime. Criminality use. Exactly. From
Bitcoin, we have wrapped Bitcoin
from actual criminals, and honestly from the US government itself. So it's like,
I've never seen a drug cartel TV series where they show them sending the money in Monero or Bitcoin or any digital thing. It's always stacks and stacks.
And honestly,
and stacks of cash.
and honestly, though, when Algorand gets its own privacy layer, if it's any good and actually keeps things private, as John's working on that as we speak. What are these people going to say when it's found out that there are some criminals using the privacy advantage of Algorand? I mean, do you just leave Algorand at that point because criminals are using it?
I think it comes down to
drain your bank account then at this point, because criminals are using that too.
I think it comes down to the basic human right that there should be a level of, everyone should have a level of privacy with how they use their money. They should have the option to do it. And so I do think things like Monero, if Algorand does get a privacy layer, they will be used. Could they be used for bad things? Yes. Could they be used for good things? Yes. But everybody should have that option at the end of the day. And it was interesting, Dan, aka Uncle Sam, I didn't want to ignore all your posts there, because we did see him. Top 5 countries searching Algorand. He was saying 5 was Slovenia, 4 was Switzerland, 3 Nigeria, 2 was Singapore, and he had some people guessing for a while on the number 1, which he said China is the number 1 for searches of Algorand. That is interesting. I would had to go do some more research on that to really, see the data that he's pulling up. But I will say Algorand is a blockchain that can garner, mass attention if enough people can get eyes on it and use it. That's the thing. We have so many gatekeepers, though. If you look at like Ethereum and crypto Twitter, right? These mass accounts are funded by, some of them are funded opposition, right? We've seen that. We've seen people who are paid to go FUD other chains and to just push people to use Ethereum, no matter if they got to pay ridiculous fees. Like, just use it, right? That's all we want you to do, is just use it, because obviously the validators are milking people there. But if we can break through and people can actually, if Algorand were to get to that mass effect type, trajectory, and people really started seeing it at scale, and seeing what it could do at scale, it would definitely, people would no longer go back to using Ethereum. And one last comment I just wanted to make on that universal income thing, because I think it's such a funny topic. I see that happening if and when AI gets to the point where people just are not being employed because so many robots have taken so many jobs. I will say, I went into Crumble Cookie yesterday or the day before to get a cookie. I walked in, there was nobody at the counter. I was literally standing there for a few minutes. Everybody was just kind of standing around, and I was like, is this like all a line? And then randomly this girl comes around the corner with a cookie and just hands it to someone. It says the name and hands it, and I'm like, and then she just leaves. And I was like, well, she didn't take any order. Like, what am I supposed to do here? And then I look down, I see there's 3 just iPads. You go up, you order, you swipe your card, and then it just gets, then someone just brings you your cookie from behind the back. Like, more and more businesses, just like, self-driving, all the stuff automated. If that stuff really starts to take over, yes, you will see universal income, because people
that's
won't have
happen.
jobs.
It's happening, bro. They're doing that at McDonald's now.
Yeah, the first all robotic McDonald's is somewhere now. I forget where, probably in China. I don't know exactly.
I think it's the US.
It's gonna be happening to your upper middle class jobs as well, your nice office jobs now with the advent of AI. Like, I personally already know that it's years away before some of the things I'm doing for my current employer can just be automated through AI. Yeah, to me, I think that there will be a mass worker replacement over the next couple of years. Humans are very creative, so I think we'll just create new industries. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal personally, but I do think that's going to happen. I do think there's going to be a mass worker replacement, and there will be a period of time where there's some rough patches during that transition. Yeah, and maybe UBI is the temporary solution.
Yeah, you're gonna have a ton of people having to create new TikTok dances to keep up with, to get people employed.
There's gonna be hella YouTube channels starting too. Like,
I might have to learn how to dance then, huh? I do want to go back to this comment too, because he's saying, when you want to sell drugs on the dark net, what crypto you're going to cash in. And of course, it's at this point, it's Monero. But if you also want to make a political donation in a country where you're making a donation to a party that's at odds with your government and you don't want them to know about it because you don't want to be persecuted, also, what crypto are you going to choose? It's Monero. So I don't agree with this argument. Plus, I think drugs should be legal. People should be able to buy and sell drugs if they want to. I don't think that's a big deal. If you're an adult and you choose to do so. So I don't think that's really a big deal anyway.
But
I think
tell them to come to Portland. You can get any drug here with cash. Any drug.
With cash.
Seriously, I know people that will accept things like Algo for weed or
Ludo
things.
Said I would choose Algorand. He's saying he wants his drugs fast. That's what he's saying. He said, I don't care about the privacy.
I need my drugs in 3 seconds.
I want them in my 3 seconds. Oh, man. I will say,
we can move off this point, but that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. I feel like we could probably close it down. We've almost been going an hour. But, I feel like, the future of crypto is still very unknown, but there is a lot of innovation coming. If you're someone who's in the market, I feel like, here in the next year to, 2 years is going to be a great time to accumulate assets that are building productive things in the space, as long as, God forbid they don't get, lose all their funding and just dry up and shrivel and go to nothing. But there's tons of things to be watching. Obviously, you got to keep your eyes right now on Bitcoin and Ethereum. I probably wouldn't have a wallet without some ETH. And outside of that,
Right.
what are your all's final thoughts?
Yeah. Make sure you not financial advice, but put some ETH in your portfolio. That's what I would say.
I won't
Not
say
financial advice, but financial
but
advice.
do this. I won't say anything as definitive, but we can leave on this good note for Algorand right here. So those that are the biggest whales in Algo still have their convictions. So from September of 2022 or even August of 2022, the whales that have over 100 million algos has more than tripled.
Wow.
I mean, if that's not a good sign, and if you look at 100K, 100K is up to the right, 10K is up to the right, 1K is up to the right. There's a lot of people that are still interested in algo, even if the Twitter sphere might want to tell you otherwise. So, and I know a lot of our audience is algo based, but I'm sure this is the case for whatever crypto that you have that, maybe isn't your number one, like algo might be for a lot of us.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, you follow what people do with their money, not really what they say, because there's a lot of accounts that'll tweet one thing, but behind the scenes, they're still, they still got their bags, right?
Right. They're shorting or longing. They're doing the opposite of what they tweet about. That happens all the time. So definitely, as with anything, whether it's, economics or politics or whatever, follow the money. I mean, that tells the bigger story.
Facts. Well,
For sure.
Thank y'all
All right,
for tapping in. Appreciate y'all.
Peace. We'll see you next week.